Good evening. I'd like to welcome you to our regular board meeting this evening. We welcome those of you that are attending tonight. We have with us Deacon Pat Snyder from Good Shepherd Catholic Church to lead us in our invocation, which will be followed by our Pledge of Allegiance. If you will, all please rise.
In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Peace to all who are gathered here. Heavenly Father, we begin this prayer by acknowledging that we are but sinners who have been blessed to be created in your image and likeness, and to be your children and to share in your divine presence when our time on earth is done. How often do we forget this basic truth, abandon you to take the easy path and allow ourselves to be drawn into and become part of the ever more egregious sins against your law for the sake of popularity and so-called social virtue. Because of these actions that you find so offensive, our society continues to move in a downward spiral from crisis to crisis, injustice to injustice, violence to violence, because we try and compartmentalize you and only want to call upon you in our hearts for 1 hour on Sunday morning. As issues are brought before this board, we beg the grace, O Lord, to involve you in our hearts as we consider the ramifications of our decisions in the light of your law. And as this board debates and makes decisions that affect our future, we beg the grace from Almighty God that the decisions are made in a spirit of cooperation for the good of the entire community. Heavenly Father, we recognize that all legitimate authority comes from you, and you have taught us that civil authority is necessary for the order of society. You've also taught us that all law and all civil authority is subordinate to and subject to your law. For we are but servants, and the way we serve you is by serving our neighbor. We ask all this through our Lord Jesus Christ, your Son, who lives and reigns with you in the Holy Spirit, one God, forever and ever. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
May Almighty God bless you. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. At this time, we do have a deletion from our agenda, and that deletion would be the public hearing. And the reason for this deletion is the county planning office failed to send out the letter for the waiver in time. This will be returned on our July 19th agenda. Are there any other additions or deletions to our agenda? If not, do I have a motion to approve our agenda with this one deletion?
Motion to approve.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Seeing none opposed, thank you. The first item on our agenda this evening is presentation in reference to our public safety building project, and it be presented by Scott Garner, the architect. Welcome this evening.
Good evening, and thank you. It's nice to be here with you, and I'll give you a report on the public safety building. I think it's coming along pretty well. I think we can start to see the shape of the building, which is interesting. It's going to be a nice building. It's going to be a large building. The concrete block are about 80% complete. The slab is almost 85% complete, except the apparatus room. And the next big item is that you see that large crane out there, is we will start erecting steel. 2 truckloads of steel were delivered today. We expect 2 more this week, and then we'll start to see the steel frame go up, and the building will take shape. Other work on the project will slow down while they're putting up steel, because you can't work underneath steel erection because it's too dangerous. But they're making good progress. And we're on schedule. So everything is good. Last week we had the issue about the sewer backup. The contractor has taken responsibility for that. That has been worked out. There will be a new connection required for the library. We will have a meeting this Thursday after our owners meeting to talk about the possibilities. There are some issues with elevation of sewer line along Gulfview And so we will evaluate the options and make a recommendation for that. That will be coming up. The building is approximately 25% complete. Tonight, we have no pending change orders, and I'm happy to say that. Things are going along pretty well. We have cleared the major hurdle of earthwork and not had a change order because of that. So earthwork change orders can be very, very large. So I think that's a good thing to have behind us. I do expect that before we finish, we will have some bumps and we'll have some items to deal with, but I don't have any to report, and we will try to keep a handle on it and keep those to a minimum. Do we have any questions?
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
do we have a problem with the elevations of the sewer line that you know of now? That
Well,
has to hook up?
you have we don't have a problem with our building. The manhole is right here in, it's an L-shaped building, and the entrance is at the corner of the L there. And that's where that manhole is that leads out into Fayetteville Public Water Commission. And so we're okay, that works. The problem is the library. First of all, the library is now connected to the line at the existing fire station. So we did not know that. When the surveyor came out to do the survey, he called NC Locate to locate all the underground pipes. They did not pick it up. They did not pick it up. Since then, a drawing of the library was found which shows that sewage line coming from the library to the fire station, and then from the fire station out to Rockfish out here. So, but we didn't know that. The surveyor went back and checked. There is no recorded easement for that sewage line. And I'm not sure what year it was put in. I think maybe the 1980s or 1990s, but I don't know when that was built.
1991.
Somehow, they need a sewage line. Now, there is another possibility. Out Parks and Recreation has their concession stand, which has toilets in it, and so it has a sewage line that goes out to Main Street. But the first appearance, looking at what we can look at on the internet, is that the only way they can do a gravity flow is to come back across the town property and go back to the same manhole on Rockfish that they're tied into now. Does that answer your question, or was that confusing?
That answers my question. In other words, we don't know for sure.
Well, we will have the civil engineer, we will have PWC, we will have Mr. Cisco will be there. Everybody who has anything to do with it will be there to evaluate what the options are and come back with a recommendation. So, but we do know the library is going to require a new connection. And but how it's going to be done, we don't know that yet.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. I believe that the library actually opened in 1992. I believe it was in 1991 when that work was done, and I guess Mr. Cisco can help me on this, but at that time, the town was responsible for the water system. And so that's the reason why it was all run across there, because it was we sold, or PWC is responsible for the town water and sewer after 1995.
Yeah.
So that's why it was done that way, because it was part of the town system.
Yeah. You see, and now you wouldn't be allowed to come across another person's property with your line without some special easement or
Yeah,
whatever.
that was town property. The library, the town got the property so the library could be built there.
Yeah.
So it was all tied together. So probably this day and time, that couldn't have, like you said, wouldn't happen.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, you were being a good neighbor
Yeah.
and taking care of things.
Yeah.
So now we have to deal with
Yep.
it. So-
Any other questions or thoughts from the board? Anything? Thank you so much. We appreciate you being with us this evening.
Well, thank you very much. I'm always glad to come down.
All righty, thank you. Next this evening, we have Deloma Graham. She's the Interim Executive Director of Fayetteville Area Metropolitan Planning Organization, what we call FAMPO, and she's going to present some updates to the MOU for the Board of Commissioners. So at this time, I'll introduce Ms. Graham to come to the microphone.
Okay. Good evening to Mayor Warner and the board members and all in attendance this evening. Thank you for allowing me to present as well. Okay, and as she said, I'm Deloma Graham, and I was the interim executive director, but we got a new director today. So I have resumed my position as senior transportation planner for the Fayetteville Area Metropolitan Planning Organization, better known as FAMPO. I'm here tonight to present the update to the FAMPO Memorandum of Understanding, and I'll refer to it as the MOU. I think you've already received information in your packets regarding the update. Currently, Fort Bragg is a non-voting member of the FAMPO Transportation Policy Board, and the board members have approved the update at their last meeting on April 28th. The FAMPO is seeking approval of the Town of Hope Mills Board of Commissioners to include Fort Bragg as a voting member on our Transportation Policy Board. The MOU exists between FAMPO, the cities of Fayetteville and Rayford, the towns of Eastover, Hope Mills, Parkton, and Spring Lake, the counties of Cumberland, Harnett, Hoke, and Robinson, Fort Bragg Military Reservation, and the North Carolina Department of Transportation. The MOU is an agreement among these municipalities for cooperative, comprehensive, and continuing transportation planning through FAMPO. In summary, it serves as a basic guide for the establishment, role, and transportation planning responsibilities of FAMPO and its board and committees, and it is mutually beneficial to each party involved. Fort Bragg made the initial request to become a voting member of FAMPO Transportation Policy Board. The Federal Highway Administration agreed that Fort Bragg should have voting rights due to the National Highway System routes going through the post and recent coordination of the I-295 project, as well as facilities on posts that are publicly funded and maintained and are eligible for planning and planning and prioritization, Fort Bragg should be able to help make those decisions that could have a direct impact on them. To date, we are close to completing our presentations. Upon completion, one copy of the updated MOU to include original signature pages will be sent to each municipality. Tonight, the FAMPO is asking Mayor Warner and the board members to approve the FAMPO Memorandum of Understanding to include Fort Bragg as a voting member of the Fayetteville Area Metropolitan Planning Organization Transportation Policy Board. And this concludes my presentation. Does anyone have any questions?
I would just like to say, as a member of the FAMPO board, I truly believe that they're active on the board, and I do believe that they should have a vote, and especially with all the things occurring with the roads going around and through Hope at this time, going through Fort Bragg. So I'd like to recommend to our board that we do approve this. So do we have someone?
Madam Mayor,
Uh-huh.
I've got a comment, and I'll make the motion too if you
Okay.
want. I agree with you, Mayor, and agree with the presentation. And I say that because of all the activity that goes on and around Fort Bragg. And over the years, they are a very active member on another committee that Commissioner-elect serves on now, that I served on last year, and that's RULAC. So yes, I was kind of surprised when I first saw this. My question would have been, why weren't they a voting member of FAMPO?
I've been told, and I'm not certain because when everything started
Mhm.
way back, But I've been told that at first they didn't want to be a voting member.
Yeah.
And then it was something about them not, about something about them being a federal agency and
Okay.
then being on a board voting for an agency that was receiving federal funding.
Mhm.
So, but everything has changed now because of the roads and everything going through.
Yeah.
Now they have a direct impact on, you know, what happens at Fort Bragg. So they, you know, Federal Highways thought that they should be involved in something that directly impacts them now, because before, they weren't directly impacted, and FAMPO could not really make decisions for things that happened on the post. But things have changed.
Yeah, they're directly impacted. And with that, Mayor, I'll go ahead and make the motion to approve the FAMPO MOU with Fort Bragg.
I'll make the second.
Have a motion and a second.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I already have that on my agenda for tonight. A note is to check about this service, that we could get active in getting it. I was questioned all the last 2 weeks about when we were gonna have possible service in Hope Mills. It's a step in the right direction. So I did second the motion.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Seeing none opposed, it passes. And I personally would like to thank you for all your work that you've done as interim director. I appreciate working with you, and just know that I'm glad you're staying with us, and looking forward to our next meeting.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Have a
much.
good evening.
Okay. The next item on our agenda is some special recognitions. And I think this is especially neat for Hope Mills because we're recognizing people that are in our community that are leaders, being recognized as leaders all over Cumberland County. And that makes it even more special that we've got 4 out of the group of 40 under 40 being recognized. So I'm going to ask Mayor Pro Tem if she'll go down front, and I'll read the certificate and then I'll come down. But the certificate states, Office of the Mayor, Town of Hope Mills, North Carolina, Certificate of Recognition, and it's presented to our first, and of course this person is the Chamber President, Hope Mills Chamber of Commerce, Casey Ferris. She'll come forward and just stay up here. We get everybody together. Stay right there. We'll get all 4 of you together. Gerald McGeechee. Gerald McGeechee is a man of many talents and has a young man that follows him around that also has lots of talents that won a special award this weekend at Juneteenth celebration. But already involved in our prime movers, our historical committee, and just very involved in everything in the town. So congratulations. We're proud of you. I don't believe Nathan Warfel is here, but Nathan Warfel is also, he lives actually in our MIA, but Nathan is a member of the Cumberland County Board of Education. And Monica Cotter. So again, we've got really some congratulations. I didn't shake hands, but I will shake hands. We're so proud that we've got you as part of our leadership team. And Mr. Mitchell's gonna get a good picture of you so that we can make sure everybody. You're gonna hold me, you're not gonna big name. Thank you so much and congratulations. Next, I'll invite our appearance committee up to make a special presentation. And this is another neat thing. This is the Yard of the Month. And so I'll let Ms. Joseph, turn it right over to you.
This month is, for June course, they're not here, they were not able to make it, because they had a prior scheduled event. It is Mrs. Karina Tavares and her husband Priamo Loriano. And they live at 5733 Trevino Street,
Trevino.
Trevino.
Mm-hmm. That's okay.
But yeah, they are the recipients of the Art of the Month for June. And we're hoping, after our meeting tomorrow, to talk, and maybe in July will be the porch parade presentation one.
Okay, sounds good. And that's the sign that'll go in their yard, and they'll be able to display that they are the Yard of the Month. So congratulations to them, and we'll get that, make sure we get it out there so it'll be in their yard tomorrow. Okay, thank you. Next on our agenda was the case number 21-042, which has been moved until our next board meeting in July. Next, we have public comments. And we have one person speaking this evening, Joanne Scarola, and I'll invite you to the microphone at this time.
Clock ready. Ready with clock? No. All right, Joanne Scarola, 5429 Archer Road, Hope Mills. Talking on behalf of the Veteran Suicide Awareness and Prevention. August 7th is an event planned at the Hope Mills Lake, and Commissioner Bellflowers has the flyer right there. I'm gonna say this, and you can take it with a grain of salt. I need you guys to do a little bit better. The fact that I'm on the Veterans Council, and if I wasn't friends with Rick here, I wouldn't know about this event. And it's being held in Hope Mills. And it's about veteran suicide, which I hold dearly to my heart for losing 4 of my own soldiers and friends. So August 7th, I'm asking for assistance from you commissioners and the mayor, having this pushed out. Skydivers are gonna come, there's gonna be a swim event, we're gonna have booths set up, and I don't want this to be forgotten like it already has been. For the fact that if I wasn't friends with him, I, citizen of Hope Mills, would have not known about it. So, I mean, I don't want another debacle like Memorial Day, okay? It's very important to me. Do you have any questions of me?
We actually have had at our board meeting the presentation, and the young lady that's in charge of getting the information out is supposed to bring back to the board that information. So we haven't forgotten it. It's very definitely on our radar, and it's on our calendars. And we've also had Parks and Rec work closely. I think Lamarco has worked with them. As far as our Parks and Rec department's going to be actively involved in it also.
Is everything tracking with that?
I will take care of it after this.
Okay. Like I said before, I'm on the Veterans Council. I haven't heard of it. They went to the board in April. I haven't heard about it. So, like I said, please do better. You know, we preach about being a veteran community.
Mm-hmm.
Practice what we preach. Any more comments? Hopes, fears, concerns?
Madam Mayor, may I ask the organizers a question of what they need from the town at this point, being this is the middle of June, and this event is on August 7th?
Yes, sir, what do you need? What would you like, what we need?
Yeah.
Sir, logistics are taken care of. DC Lopez has been amazing in the fire department. I've been working with him throughout May and June. He's been great. I have been trying
Everything's
to get in
done.
contact with Mr. McLaughlin, Chancellor, I think is his first name, trying to get some food trucks. Everything is just moving very, very slowly.
Okay.
Other than that, I need help with promotions, sponsors, people being interested in the event, because whenever I say to swim, people get terrified. Like, no one wants to swim. It's different than a run, that my good friend Rick Morello has done.
Okay.
So I just need it to be a family event, and have Hope Mills just be a family, a friendly place for people to come.
Okay. Thank you very much.
you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Mhm. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes public comments. Next, we have our consent agenda. Is there anything on the consent agenda that you would like moved to new business, or do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda that's before you?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, sir?
I'd like to move item D to new business for discussion.
Okay. Item D. Is there anything else that you would like moved? If not, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda with item D moved to new business?
Motion approved.
Have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Seeing none opposed. So this time you do have at your table some information. I will turn this over to our town manager or to whoever you direct that would you like to respond in reference to this.
Yes, Mayor, Madam Mayor. So this, I was requested to provide more detail on the information by one of the commissioners, and we did provide that at your table this evening. It just has the background on the past several years. Most of this information is detailed pre-planning and design type of work related to this, the road. Our finance director is here if you have any specific questions, but the detail is before you. It was, you know, obviously, I'm still new, I apologize, I didn't really have any questions on this, I did sign off on it. The detail wasn't super specific, but it was kind of a housekeeping item, so, you know, we presented it, just kind of cleaning it up for audit purposes at the end of the year. So it is good to have those questions, we did provide the detail. The breakout is there for the $48,225. Most of the money is going to North Carolina DOT, $28,225, and then CSX with the railroad is almost $18,000 of that amount. And the invoices are all included. That it does go back several years, so it's taken some time to get to this stage. It isn't when you think in terms of budget readjustment or a budget amendment, it's not allocating monies that were not already determined. It's just cleaning those up for audit purposes. If you have any opinions.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Scott, thank you very much for the detail and the detailed packet. My one question will probably be to either you or Drew. Is this amount part of the town's 20% of the 80-20 split? I'm not.
Complicated, but
Yes, sir.
So the question would be, is the 48,000 part of the town's 20% split of 80-20 with the project?
It is. I don't recall the exact split of the total project, but a portion of it goes for design and engineering, and then the majority of it goes for construction. We do have 2 or 3, I think, draws we did on reimbursements on this project.
Mhm.
And then we've got some others that are ready to go at some point in time. I don't have an exact timeline on when we're gonna do the next draws, even though we've made the payments. We need to space them out so that it holds the project open essentially.
Okay.
And because these projects take so much time, we're required to make draws every 6 months on them, and then that's what we'll be doing with the next one.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Don.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions in reference to this?
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Next, we have. Oh, I'm sorry.
I'll make the
I'm
motion,
sorry.
Madam Mayor. Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
I'll make the
Second.
motion to approve it.
Motion to approve item D from consent agenda.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Seeing none opposed. All right, now, reports and information items. Is there anything, Mr. Mazeros, that you'd like to add to the manager's report?
We did have an item we discussed at the previous meeting addressing how we add agenda items from the commissioners. We're doing some research on that. I haven't reached out to the town attorney yet, but in looking at it, we did, literally our procedures manual is detailed directly from the recommendations from the state of North Carolina. So if we desire to amend that, Commissioner Hurley was going to ask at the end talking about that, so I don't wanna jump ahead, but, you know, really it's up to the body, how they like to have things added. I think, you know, it gets a little cumbersome if you add something on Tuesday, and then it has to be in the packet by that Thursday, just in case the department head's not available, or if there's things that need to be researched. Having an individual commissioner ask for that could potentially get us doing work at the direction of one commissioner when maybe the other commissioners aren't on board, or we shouldn't put resources to that yet. I don't really have a good solution in mind. Lots of different councils and commissions do this differently, but I think it would be good to have some kind of forum where we do have maybe two present it, or maybe some other way that we're not just allocating staff time and resources to something that may not be supported by the whole commission. Coming up with a solution to that is, I really kind of would put that back on you as to see what you're comfortable with, and we want to be responsive and timely, but yet we don't want to start doing research just at a direction of one. So we wanted to kind of brainstorm that and get some time to come back, and I assure you, we do want to get that to you in a timely fashion, but it's really up to you, so I don't want to tell you how to do that, but I would take direction on what you think is appropriate.
Madam
Other than
Mayor?
that, I didn't have
Yes,
any
sir.
outside updates.
Yes, sir.
Do we need more time for research to make sure that we're, I'm gonna use the phrase covering all bases?
Yeah, and I think, you know, even with this, I apologize because I am kind of getting into the role. The city clerk and I discussed some things, I pulled some research, but we didn't actually get that accomplished, and you know, just for instance, trying to get those things together, sometimes it may be really easy to throw things together, other times it may take a little longer. Like with attorney items, not to throw the town attorney under the spotlight, but, you know, it would be something where if you had a bigger project, say like with the referendum or something, where the town attorney might be like, oh, it's gonna take me 2 or 3 months to get this done, would it be appropriate to come back in October? Whereas when you put things on, we just wanna make sure that the full council supports doing that legwork and the research. If it's just something that you have that you wanna discuss, that's different than if you have research and work that has to go into it in that short timeline. So maybe you put it on the agenda as a discussion item, and at the council meeting, everyone kind of does the vote and direction. If it has sustained direction, we would try to get something back together and give you a timeline. But most things, if they're not large, we would hope to have them in a timely fashion, but what if it's a cumbersome, you know, certain times of year, certain departments are busier than others, and I think it's good to try to develop like a reasonable, hey, we would get this back to you in this time frame, rather than, you know, no council or body likes to have open-ended multiple items where they're not getting feedback and getting direction on when that's going to be completed and presented. So we would want to keep that in mind as well. It's kind of vague and kind of nebulous, but I assure you we want to come to some agreement that you feel is something that you would be comfortable with.
I know that in previous boards that I've been on, it has always been 2 members of the board had to request something to be put on the agenda. And the main reason for that was just like you said, is otherwise you would have it being continually just one board member bringing stuff up. A lot of times too, asking for something the night of a meeting was addressed. In other words, so if there is something that all of a sudden surfaces tonight, then that would be, instead of us asking for a response from our staff or from you, that would be channeled into our next board meeting. And that was the way it had worked previously, and it seemed to work very well. It has not been that way the past 4 years or 3.5 years, in that it was just a matter of a member could put something on the agenda. And I agree. I do believe sometimes we are spinning our wheels if we don't have at least a consensus of an item, maybe 2 members that would, you know, put their heads together and say, this is something we would like to have on the agenda. That's just my opinion, but I have worked it both ways.
If I may, one potential solution is our current rules of procedure allow board members to request an item to be added at the beginning of the meeting, and then that request would be voted on by the full board.
Okay.
So if it's just a discussion item, you know, you come into the meeting and say, I'd like to add an item for discussion of this topic at the meeting, and then the board could vote whether to add that item or not.
Okay. And then if it was something that needed research, it could be researched from that discussion for our next meeting. Would that be appropriate? Yeah. Okay.
Mayor,
How does that sound? Yes, sir?
I don't really like things added at the last second. If we add something and discuss it, as you said, I would want to hear it at the next meeting after everyone has had time to do research on it and in my case, build my knowledge in that field. So I think we need to do something, even if it is going to the two members to get something added to agenda.
And it could be, just like he just stated, it could be added to the agenda for discussion, like tonight, if it'd been added, but there'll be no action taken until our next meeting, which that might be the most appropriate thing to do, would be if it was added tonight, then the action would, because I know in some cases we've had things added, and then by the next meeting, we've wanted to change the decision. So that might help with that problem too, or with that, would give us an opportunity to act on something at the next meeting.
As long as it's not an emergency, you know.
Right.
Added on as an emergency is a different ballgame in my eye. So,
Yes, sir?
And if I may, so going with that suggestion, you would give direction, yes, no, to work on this, and then on the next agenda, the public would be able to see what you're doing. I think the key piece is not to do and talk about things the public hasn't been noticed.
Right.
Because they may not have the opportunity to be here.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that sounds like a great suggestion, and it doesn't have to get too complicated.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the easiest
Yeah.
solution, but you have to be comfortable and all.
excuse me, Dan, what's your suggestion? And do we need a motion for this?
You actually already have it in the rules that you can, at the beginning of a meeting, when there's discussion about approving the agenda, you can request an item to be added. My suggestion was just that if there's an item that you would like discussed by the board on where do we want to go with this kind of thing, then you could request that to be added to the agenda at the beginning of the meeting, sort of for discussion purposes only. And then the full board could either vote to add that item or not add it. If you add it and have a discussion, then direction could be given about, what we want to bring back to the next meeting for action, consideration of action.
Yes, sir. Madam Mayor,
Yes,
that's
sir.
the way the Hope Mills Youth Association Board of Directors operate. If we add something to the agenda, we can't vote on it tonight unless it's emergency stuff. So if we need a motion to direct the town manager to research this and tell us, or put in how he wants it done, or we should do it, I think that's what we'll do, so I'll make that motion.
Madam Mayor,
Actually already have it in the rules.
It's
it's
already in the
it's
rules.
already in the
Okay.
rules.
We just need to follow the rules.
So
I'll follow the rules.
Yeah.
yeah, that's already there. Back to the two-member motion. How, the
I would-
two
I would-
board members, how would that work?
Well, I would prefer just doing it like Commissioner Legg and just have one way of doing it. Then we don't have to worry, because I think that would take care of anybody's concern, because you'd bring the item up and then for discussion or whatever, and then or to be added to the agenda. I think that would work best, and then not have the other. In other words, it's just, that would be the way you do it. And that would then mean that our town manager and staff would be able to have the responses after our discussions at the next meeting, and that would be for action. And that would keep us from making quick decisions that we might later on think we should have done it differently, I think, personally. And I think Commissioner Legg's got the right ideas. Have it so that we,
Discuss it now
put it
and
on the
vote on it
agenda,
later.
put it up for discussion on the agenda if it's approved by the board, and then no action can be taken until the next board meeting. Unless, like you said, it was something that was emergency type situation that needed action.
I mean, if a garbage truck broke down, or one of our service trucks broke down, we gotta have it. We can't wait 2 weeks to to get a motion to repair it. I think there's tools that the town manager has and Mr. Cisco and some of those people that they can get that kind of stuff repaired anyway without our vote. Am I correct, Don, Scott?
So, Madam Mayor, actually, we're just taking out the commissioner part of adding something to the agenda by Tuesday
Yeah.
5. That's what we're taking out. And if that commissioner wants to add something, then he'll have to, or she, will have to add it under additions, deletions, the night of the board meeting. For full board consideration, which is in the rules, okay.
And that would, the town manager would then be providing us our agenda based on previous board request at the board meeting, and then whatever was necessary to be on our agenda based on town business at that
And
time.
and that item can only be for discussion purposes.
First night.
First night, yeah.
First reading, I guess, in this case, I would call it the first reading. Okay. And then we'd have to wait 2 additional weeks for any action taken.
Unless it's an emergency.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mayor.
Okay, any other questions in reference to that?
I do, Madam Mayor.
Yep.
I have seen it where people submit something to get added to the agenda and it has to link with a strategic goal that you're working on. I think like if you present it to the board and they want to vote on it, you can. If you don't want to vote on it, you can just make a motion to vote on it the next meeting. I don't know if that should be like the rule, just because it's the first night you don't vote on it. You might be comfortable voting on it the first night. And can't you just make that decision? Like, does it have to be, you have to bring it back in order to vote on it the first night?
I think under our current rules, there are certain items that you can't vote on the night of introduction, certain ordinances, but for the most part, as the rules currently stand, you could, as a board, make the decision to vote on something the first time it comes up. I don't think you want to set a rule, it's just me thinking out loud, that ties your hands on voting at the first meeting. It may be something that's an easy consensus item that everyone agrees with, and you might just go ahead and vote on that. But if it is something that requires additional research, or, you know, we need some information on this to make a decision, then that's when the board would say, let's come back, let's get that information, put this on the agenda for the next meeting for further action.
Yeah, so,
I
yeah.
think keep it flexible.
Yeah, in other words, what's within our rules and procedure would make it that flexible. And we just aren't changing what's already there. We're just not gonna be putting items on, by individual board members by Tuesday. In other words, whatever would be requested would be in additions to what the town manager provides. And then whatever action is taken would be determined by what type of that item it is.
Excuse me, Mayor, the board member would still have the opportunity to present at the beginning of the meeting for additions, deletions.
Yeah,
And honestly, and I know this to be true, that if a board member submits an agenda item on Tuesday, it is placed on the agenda for the Monday night meeting, the board can still not hear it. They can vote it off right there under additions and deletions, and that's currently in the rules, and it's happened on this board several times. So regardless of when the item is placed on the agenda, the board can
yeah, I don't think
can
it's-
vote
yeah.
to not even hear it.
I don't think that was the town manager's concern. I think his concern was some of the items that are asked last minute require so much for staff that then what happens is, is it something the full board wants to get that information? So I think it would depend upon what those kinds of items were too. In other words, if you want to have a discussion on something that is, can just be discussed, that would be fine. But if you're requiring a whole lot of data, then, you know, And I mean, yeah, go ahead.
That, I think when somebody, if we did it that way, like
Yeah.
you're talking about, that would give town staff a full 2 weeks to do the research that we need to bring it back to us and give us the full information that we need to be able to make a informed decision on it.
Then why not
Is that
give,
correct?
then why not give the board member that 2-week opportunity and leave it like it is?
I think the idea is it would save town staff the time and effort of gathering information if the board were to discuss it and
Mhm.
decide not to proceed. So you're only, so that the staff then is only working on items that have full board approval
So,
instead of.
so like what the attorney's saying, and the mayor's saying, if we bring it up at the beginning of the meeting, if I make a motion to add an item to the agenda and it falls for lack of a second or it's not supported by a majority of the board, then that item's not added at all, and that saves town staff time and hassle of researching that item if the full board's not willing to discuss it, correct?
That's the idea.
And just for awareness, the rules have where a citizen can place something on the agenda. And generally speaking, if it's just a small thing, staff may or may not be able to accommodate that also, but generally that would, the citizen putting it on there would come before you, and then you would say whether or not staff should have. You know, the small stuff we try to resolve if we can, without it coming for formal board action. But having a process where we're not, I think that this is coming to light because we have things placed on the agenda on Tuesday that have to be in the packet by Thursday. And, you know, like what if that department head is not available, or if that department doesn't have resources? And then this way, you could still put it on the agenda, but it would come to the council before you make a decision to put resources towards it or not. And, you know, it's probably not very common that you don't, but at least then we're not doing a last minute or a rushed type of you know, if it warrants an emergency, we could always have a special meeting or convene and that kind of thing to take care of issues. It's just like a day-to-day business, not having the staff having that additional pressure of responding in that 2 days. I think that would be beneficial to the product you get, as well as to the person inquiring. We're here to serve, so, you know, we want to resolve and
Mayor?
provide service.
Yes, sir.
I kind of brought this up at the last meeting, after Mr. Zell made his, comments. And the way I took it was Mr. Zell was from the outside. He came into Hope Mills, he evaluated us for about 3 months basically, and this was one of the things that he made mention of, that we could streamline our process. And I kind of like the idea of it, you know, bringing it up. You know, if the board votes it down, they vote it down. We don't have to waste time on it. If the board wants to hear it, then we give them the direction at that point. They know we want to hear it, so it gives them a full 2 weeks, gives staff a full 2 weeks to work on it. We can discuss it that night if we'd like. And if we want to take action on it that night, we can take action on it. Or if we want to wait to take action and get more information, I think, I like it. So that would be.
And I know another thing too that sometimes comes up is during official comments, if, you know, might have somebody have a concern or have some, that might be something that instead of saying or asking somebody to answer something, you could just say that for our next meeting, I'd like to add, you know, information about Johnson Street sidewalk, you know, and then that way you'd have from now until then, so that then if in fact this was something that everybody wanted to hear, then you wouldn't be waiting. If there's something, a burning question right now, it wouldn't have to wait until our next meeting to be added to the agenda. You could go ahead and suggest if the board wanted to hear it. And then that would, cause especially now, because our next board meeting isn't until July 19th. So there's a big gap between now and then. So I guess that would be the other thing, is if you do have something that you'd like researched, now would be a good time to ask for it, to be put on the agenda for the 19th. But we do have in our rules of procedure what we need to proceed by that adding it on the evening of the board meeting.
If I may. Matter of fact, tonight I made me some notes because I had a couple of items that I was wanting to try to put on the upcoming agenda, and I was waiting till public comments to bring that to the board. So would that still be fine tonight to do it under? Okay. And one of my items, I think, and one of the items I got that I want to bring forward to the board for, you know, if they'll discuss it on the upcoming agenda, may help answer some of these questions on our rules of procedure and so forth, so.
So, Madam Mayor,
Yes,
what
sir.
if it's just a discussion item, and that's all that the commissioner wants, to add it by 5 o'clock on Tuesday, just a discussion item? Board still can vote on it either way at
As
the
long as
meeting.
it's not requiring town staff to do research. That's
Yeah.
what we're trying to eliminate, is
Well-
the town staff doing research that quick for a quick turnaround.
What if it was just a discussion item that the board member wanted to put on there prior to 5 o'clock on Tuesday? Just discussion, and that's it. So, Monday night's meeting, additions, deletions to the agenda, the board can vote up or down right there to even hear the discussion.
Madam Mayor? Why couldn't it be put on that night, added to the agenda that night instead of before the agenda comes out? I mean, be the same principle.
Well, in that case, you'd be giving the board members an opportunity to see what the discussion item is.
Well, that's,
They may need a couple days to evaluate what the discussion item's gonna be, instead
well,
of
then we'd have it.
just add it at one time, with no discussion.
Madam Mayor,
Madam Mayor,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
you go ahead, Commissioner.
I think it's important that it gets in the hands of the staff so the public can be aware of what is going to be on the agenda, instead of just looking at the agenda and say, what's this? You know, they'll have time to get notice when they send out the sunshine list and all that stuff. I like it when the public's been made aware of what we're doing here and what our intentions may be. So, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No,
Pro Tem.
and that was gonna be my comment. I think streamlining the process, sometimes things can be addressed in an email, and sometimes it can be a consensus, and it can be added in the consent agenda. So sometimes I will communicate with you all, and you will tell me, you can answer it in an email, or we can, you know, it doesn't need to be on the agenda. So I would still like that, because it may just be something that just doesn't need to be an agenda item. The other comment I was gonna make about that with staff comments, instead of it being, I can get up here and say anything, not staff official comments, I would recommend moving them to the beginning as announcements, because the whole situation where the public is not hearing a lot of stuff, they don't sit here and wait to the last, at the end when we start making announcements. And most of them are here at the beginning and they leave. And I think that we can keep that very streamlined, with announcements of upcoming things going on that may not be in the agenda. That may help as well.
That's part of your policy, so you would need to direct us to change your policy.
Well, I give the board 2 weeks to think about it, 3, and see if they want to do that, but.
Well, I mean, Madam Mayor, I've got an item I want to talk about too, but it's going to be up under town manager's report. It'll probably be discussed tonight with some direction for the next meeting. I don't know. I agree with Commissioner Legg. I mean, I think it's transparency. I don't see what the harm is. If it's just a discussion item, I can understand all the research that may go involved here. I mean, we're going to be taxing our town staff for weeks? But some discussion items can be easily settled, I mean, by an email, if the town manager knows exactly what they are. I mean, one of them's tonight. I mean, it's the budget amendment for the $48,000. I moved it off the consent agenda because of transparency issues. The packet that each of you have tonight is what the town manager supplied to each board member in addition to where that $48,000 is going. And it's because of the transparency. It's an unfunded budget amendment. And that's why I moved it from the consent to new business for the public's transparency of exactly where that money is going. That was and you got, each of you got a packet tonight detailing exactly where that money is. So yes, it is about transparency. Everything we do as this board is transparent to the public. And the more we make that transparent, the greater the public trust each and every meeting that we serve on and decisions that we make. But if Mayor Pro Tem wants 2 more weeks, okay. We'll talk about it, come back and talk about it again in 2 weeks.
I kind of want to make what's easier for the staff and the manager and even the attorney if need be, or some other department head, Drew, Don, whoever has to be involved in it, so that we don't miss any pages in the book, you know, that we get everything covered and we cover what we need to cover at the time we need to cover it. So the citizens understand, because that's who we work for. We work for the citizens.
Yep.
And we need to keep them informed of what's going on up here with us. I've seen stuff like this in my 20 years of serving this town. I've seen stuff go from here to here. I know the mayor has too in her time.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
if I'm not mistaken, the town manager just sit over there a while ago and told us what was gonna be easier. Like Mr. Legg said, what's gonna be easier for him and for his staff to get us what we need. And I think there would be more than enough transparency when he brings back enough information so everybody can see it and look at it just like we do.
And I think just like this evening, with the Powell bill revenues going to the Johnson Street Sidewalk project, the Johnson Street Sidewalk project has been on the books for quite some time. It is an 80-20 match. The town has known that from the very beginning. The town's goal was to improve pedestrian walkways, and this saves us 80% of the cost. So if you're looking at it in that way, the sidewalk, will have a sidewalk that'll move you from Rockfish Road, the ballpark area, down to the lake, across the railroad tracks where we have had fatalities with pedestrian crossing, and the town's going to spend 20% of what the total cost would be instead of having to pay the full amount. I look at it that way. We're saving 80%, and we're also doing something that's going to benefit our citizens. And at the same time, PwC is helping us, because I do believe when that project starts, they're also going to do some infrastructure work there too. So this is another win-win for us. And so I think if in fact these long-term projects like this that we didn't act on as quickly as we should have are now being caught up, and we're going to end up with a finished product that's going to give us a walkway, it's going to give us some changes in the way the road looks, and it's also going to help us with PwC infrastructure needs. So I think if that part can be told to our general public that this is really a win-win, then hopefully it'll we won't have been a situation where people will be doubting the transparency of why we're spending 20% of a matching amount when it's really a huge amount when you look at it. Which is also the other item that would be brought up, I'm sure, is the Rockfish Road Sidewalk project, which that funding has been moved and hopefully will be in the STIP with DOT, which that's going to be on our FAMPO agenda probably in July, and that would mean that money then would pay for the Jack White bike path or walking trail down at the lake. And it would also enhance the sidewalk area down there, which again is a project we determined that was too expensive for the town to undertake 100% cost. So I just bring that to your attention. And of course, I've been involved with the sidewalk grants since 2012, 2013. So it's been a long process.
Mayor,
Anything
if-
else?
if-
Yes, sir?
if
I'm
if-
sorry, you
if
got
we could-
interrupted again.
No,
Go ahead.
If we could, I don't know if we'd need a motion or just direction, but I'd like to, see us direct the manager to come back at the next meeting with something in writing as to a change of our procedure for the adding items to the agenda, that we do it under additions and deletions, is voted on. And if it gets the support of the board, it's added on the next upcoming agenda. And also what Mayor Pro Tem said, I'd like to see them come back with moving official comments to the beginning of the meeting, so the public that is here at the beginning of the meeting can get as much information or comments from the board, or official comments from the board, in a timely manner, instead of waiting till the end of the meeting. If I need to make that a motion, I'll make it a motion.
I'll
If we just
second it.
do general
Okay,
consensus.
The first part of that motion is already in the rules of procedure.
Yeah.
So I don't think you need a motion on that. If you would like to change the order of the agenda, that does need a motion.
Okay, well, I'll make that a motion then.
Okay, so the motion would be to change the order of the agenda so that we would move the official comments from the end of the meeting to the beginning of the meeting, which my assumption would be, if we went to the beginning of the meeting, would we want those to be after the approval of the agenda? Is that how soon you want the official comments to be?
It works for me if it works for the rest of the board.
So on the agenda, it would be item 2.
Yes, everything would just fall down from there. It would go
Yeah, fall
numbered
down
on
from there.
And then what we could also do during those official comments would also be the updates on the committees, because that falls under official comments usually there at the end. Would that not be correct, Ms. Starling?
They're two separate things on the agenda generally, because
Would we need to,
the
We need
reports from
those.
the committees and commissions comes under reports and information items. And then the official comments is a separate item all its own.
okay, so just,
The next, the last thing before adjournment right now,
okay.
or before closed session.
So just move official and then leave reports so that they'll come back. They just have to remember that in their official comments, they're not giving an update on their committee reports, or we'd have it said twice.
Madam Mayor?
Yeah.
I do have a question about that as well. If we have, Mr. McGeechee or Ms. Yassett, and they want to give the presentation about their committee, they have to wait to the end of the meeting to give their report. If they are present and they wanted to, they still have to wait here until the end of the meeting to give their report. That way, if some of the chairs wanted to come, give their report, they can give their report and they can go home. They don't have to stay here the whole night for the entire meeting.
You do have the ability now as a board, if you have someone who has come to give a presentation on a committee, you can vote to move that section of the agenda on a case-by-case basis. At the start of the meeting, say we have someone here to present, and then I'd like to request that we move this up in the agenda so they can present and leave. You could do that now on a meeting-by-meeting basis, and then if no one is here to present, then you could still have it at the end of the meeting.
Okay, we can start, we
Okay.
can do that. We can start, actually start
works.
to do that. Thank you.
Okay. So the only thing we need is a motion to move official comments up to item 2, with the rest of the topics being moved down from there. So do we have a motion to do that?
Madam Mayor, I make a motion to move official comments to item number 2 on the agenda.
Okay, we have a
I'll
motion.
second.
Have a motion and second. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Seeing none opposed, so our next meeting will have official comments after we approve the agenda. Okay, anything else?
we, Madam Mayor, are we still under manager's report, or?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Okay, just want to make sure before we move on. The
Yeah.
item that I wanted to discuss under manager's report was the log boom status emails that we got this week. I think all the board members got those. And here's what I'd like the board to consider while I'm going to discuss this, is that current log boom that's out there goes through repair after repair after repair after repair. It was the original log boom, if memory serves me correctly, to the failed dam before the current dam. And then it was taken when the failed dam, the Crowder one, that failed, it was taken and it was stored for probably 8 years in dry dock, as I usually say. And it was never, and it was ordered and it was fitted to that dam footprint, not the current dam that we have now. And it continues to break. It's broken as we sit here now. And I'm not saying that there'll be an incident out there on the lake. I don't know. There was one in Eden this past weekend with some canoers and went over the fingers. Where I'm going is, I think it's time now, with the repairs of this log boom that we have, and each of you know it bothers me to Band-Aid items. It does. It deeply concerns me. I think I would like to ask the town manager to look at a more modern, appropriate device to go out there and to remove the one that's there now, that's costly, and it continues to break, and it's forever old. I think maybe now it's the time to put in the right devices for the dam, the current dam that we have, that has not only lasted through one, but more than one hurricane. So it is definitely qualified. We think that it'll go forward.
I would like to say that I did go out with them when they were repairing it. They're replacing the parts as they go. And I don't know that we might need to ask how they believe that process is going, because I know they've spent some time and effort, and it's just a matter of getting all the parts replaced. And from my experience with log booms from the first dam, when I was a commissioner at that time, they can run $100,000 easy, some of them. That was the first quote we got for
Madam
one.
Mayor, we may not be looking at a log boom.
Well,
we may be looking at something else.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying, but I would like to.
That's the direction that
yeah.
I would like the board to.
But I would like to add to that, to
Okay.
research where they are now, because I know they've spent a lot of time coming up with a method of repairing the one that's out there. I know it keeps breaking, but where it's breaking is not where they've repaired it. It's breaking at the next leg.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know who would be the person that could speak to that this evening, but
Yeah, and, Mayor, the fire chief and the deputy chief
Mhm.
with me, and we discussed this, and they're saying that, when I first showed up, I assumed that the buoys and everything was to protect boats or swimmers from
Mhm.
going over. And in essence, it's really only about the logs,
Mhm.
keeping the logs out. I'm not advising this, but the deputy fire chief, when they dive and swim, they literally sit right up against the new infrastructure, and it doesn't push you, obviously in a storm, a flood event, it's dangerous, you want people in there.
Mhm.
But that's not the reason for the buoys. The buoys now were not designed to be submerged for years and held out for 8 years.
Mhm.
So they suggested researching maybe having 3 vertical pillars that have like a warning buoy,
Mhm.
just having those in that vicinity and removing the infrastructure. So I mean, if that's the direction I'm hearing, I can definitely find some cost estimates and get pricing and that kind of thing. If that's what you so wish to see.
Madam Mayor, may I
Yes,
ask
sir.
a question? Do you know what the breaking on is? Is it the pins that hold your cables together? Are they rusting in two? And if so, can we upgrade them to a better quality of pins or bolts or whatever, have something that won't
So-
deteriorate so fast?
Yes, Commissioner. So this afternoon, the discussion was, it's not true stainless steel solid product. It's hard to get that because cables are coated or they're a portion of the anodizing process. They're not meant to be submerged and used for extensive long periods. So it's really not, it's an older product and it's expensive and it really wasn't designed to be used the way it is. It's been a series of, it rots out, the pin and the cotter pin, it's anodized, and how they deteriorate. The big problem right now is to remove it and to do anything with it, we need to drain the lake down to a level where we can either get a
Control.
torch and cut it off, or where you have a submersed diver that has a welding, a submersible torch where, like underwater diving, where they actually cut it off with the torch underwater. And we don't have access to that equipment without investing in doing that. So it's kind of like you can fix it all and get an estimate to go with like what's needed there, or to replace what existed there previously, which is a pretty expensive process, like the mayor had stated.
Mhm.
So it's really, there's no need to have the big log boom, is my understanding, based on the new design. So we could get some 3 vertical piers and estimates to go that process. Or if you want to see what it costs to do the other process, that is pretty expensive and would require a full, complete overhaul, which they haven't been doing that. They've just been piecemealing it
Yeah.
as it goes. And,
Mhm.
and they do have 3 or 4 T's left to replace. So we could make it last longer the way it is, but right now we just can't
Yeah.
do that because of the water levels and equipment required.
And the next time that we would be lowering the water level officially would be when?
In the fall, when they do the pier checks and the work
So,
on the
so if
people
if
adjacent
there
property
was,
owners.
just wouldn't want to lower it until summer's over.
Madam Mayor, I'm just asking the board to direct for options.
If we're having problems with this particular system, which evidently we are, maybe we should look into, which is gonna be expensive, as he said, replacing it with better updated equipment that will do the job that we need done. Because as you said, it's not for boats or swimmers, it's for logs. Did I say that right, Mr. Bellflower?
Close. Close.
Or finish it up for me, would you?
I understand your intent, so if you would like us to move forward and get you some estimates, we can certainly do that.
Is everybody in agreement?
Well, we gotta do something.
It's just a consensus.
I mean, they can present us
It's
with
just
different
a-
options.
It's just a
Yeah,
consent.
just present us with options. I think the main thing is, we don't wanna have to do a study or get a consultant or find somebody else. If this is something we can handle, then I think that's the route we should go, but I agree. Is everybody in consensus that we want them just to bring back some ideas or ways that we might correct this problem?
I'm fine
Is that
with
okay?
Yes, ma'am,
Okay.
I think we should just direct the town manager to.
Yeah, do
Yep.
some, bring it back.
Come
Got-
up with some suggestions.
Yeah, suggestions for ways of fixing it.
Thank you, Mayor.
Is there anything else from the manager's report? Okay, all righty. We do have our committee meetings coming up. June 22nd is Appearance Commission meeting in Parks and Rec Building at 6:30. Monday, June 28th at 6 p.m. is Tier 1 Hope Mills meeting. It's going to actually be at 6, and it's going to be here in person, not virtually. 28th at 6:30 p.m., Parks and Rec Committee in the Parks and Rec Building. July 1 at 6, the Prime Movers in Luther Boardroom. July 5th, Independence Day holiday, the town offices will be closed. Wednesday, July 14th, the Historic Preservation Committee will meet in Parks and Rec Building at 6. Monday, July 19th at 7 p.m. will be our regular meeting in this room. Do want to take this opportunity to thank all of our committees, especially those that have had to work in some of the events that we've had recently. But we do have next up Staff comments? Anybody have anything? Any comments out there? All right, official comments. We will start with whoever would like to go first. How we do that? Who wants to
I'll
talk
take
first?
off.
All right, Commissioner Legg.
First of all, Mrs. Bailey, glad to see you here. Miss Bailey's had some problems, been hospitalized for a few days. It's good, glad to have you back with us, ma'am. I'd like to comment on the Parks and Recreation staff, LaMarco, Morrison, Maxie Dove, and Stephen Kissinger, on what great job they've done in this softball tournament that's going on right now. So far, they've cleared over $10,800 in 2 days because yesterday was rained out early. So it's very beneficial to know that, looking forward to, if we go to a wagon wheel or something, that we can do that every weekend. But it's really good to know that the fine job they're doing, and I would make a recommendation that we might want to give them a certificate along with their staff to be recognized with all the hard work that's been done. But thanks to the Parks and Recreation staff for everything they did. Don't forget, we got a baseball tournament coming up this weekend, but it's a little smaller than the tournament that's going on right now. I think that's all I got, Madam Mayor, but that's enough, isn't it?
And we're glad you're back with us this evening,
Thank
sir.
you.
I'm glad you're
I'll
feeling
give you a
better.
report on that. I'm glad to be back. Thanks goes out to all the phone calls, emails, messages, other ways, people stopping by, even people coming to the hospital to visit me when I was there. I wasn't supposed to be there, but I was. So I thank the good Lord above that I'm able to be back in here tonight. I'm doing well, in case anyone wants to know. And if the doctor keeps me on that boost stuff, oh gosh, I'll be running the track next week. That's terrible stuff, but it's good. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Board.
Commissioner Marley?
Yes, ma'am. I got several items. First, I wanted to say that Pet Fest that we had here a couple weekends ago, I guess, park was crowded. It looked like everybody was.
It was.
Looked like that was a great event. And the dedications in the park that were done, those look like they went off well. I'm glad to have you there, and Miss McCray, and I think I seen Mr. Bellflower. I thought I seen Mr. Bellflower's there too.
I was.
I don't know if anybody else was there, but it looked like it went well. Anytime we can do that, that's great. The other two items I have is probably going to touch some feelings. It's basically for the board here. I got a couple items that I was wanting to try to get put on the agenda for discussion. The first item being, and I've had several phone calls on this from citizens that's had some concern that relate to me, so I'm bringing it up. I'd like to try to get added to an upcoming agenda for discussion and possible action, and I'm reading from my notes here so everybody knows. Possible action using Robert's Rules of Order as a guide for bringing agenda items up for discussion, which is kind of like what we discussed. And their main concern was the fact that they seem to think that this board has been bringing up items that has already been voted on, and continuously bringing it back up for discussion. So I'd like for us to discuss that. The second item is, and this has to do with the town losing several committee members, long-serving committee members, good committee members, that we're finding it hard to replace or find it hard to even get committee members in the first place. But they suggested that we discuss the roles of the commissioners as liaisons to town committees. And I was reminded that the commissioners and the mayor has a code of conduct for interacting with committee members, citizens, and town staff. So we need to police ourselves, and I'd like to try to add those two items on the upcoming agenda for discussion and maybe possible action on the first one that I brought up. So I'll entertain anything that the rest of the board has on that.
So I guess if you want those to be put on the agenda, we would ask that, is there anyone would like to, is that a form of a motion?
I can make both of those in the form of a motion. I'm sure I have to do it separately, but
Would that be
if I need
appropriate
to.
for the next agenda?
I suppose, if the board wants to discuss those.
Okay, so,
We sort of did discuss.
We sort of did, because I asked the
This course-
town manager
first one.
before the meeting, I told him that I was gonna ask him what the procedures was gonna be moving forward from discussion at our prior meeting. So if I need to put those in the form of a motion, I'll be more than happy to.
Commissioner-
I would note as well that in our current rules of procedure, there is a rule that is in place to prevent an item from being brought over and over to the board. So to the extent that's a concern, there is a remedy for that in the rules of procedure that we currently have.
Well, maybe we just need to discuss that at an upcoming meeting to make sure that we all, as a board, understand that. But if I need to make a motion. I'll-
Madam Mayor, I just want to add something to Commissioner Marley. Your comments about the code of conduct for the mayor and commissioners is well noted, but that also includes committee members. It also includes committee members. So we're talking about a code of conduct. For us, it includes committee members as well. And that, sir, you should add to your motion.
I mean, we'd be glad to discuss it all. I mean,
Yeah.
I just,
Yes.
it's brought to my attention that we kind of needed to police ourselves, and I told them that it would be a touchy subject maybe, but I would bring it up, and, maybe something we do need to discuss and refresh
agree.
ourselves
I
on
agree.
that. So,
Mayor,
yes, sir.
I might add to what Mr. Marley is saying. Sometimes we do stuff that we don't realize we're in violation of a code of conduct. When we're meeting with people, residents, committee members, the public as a whole, it's easy for us to get in a position where we violated a code of conduct. So I agree, if we know the rules, we gotta play by the rules. So if we get them back on the agenda and refresh our minds, then we'll have something to go by. And thank you, Mr. Marley,
Okay.
for giving me that time.
Okay, so we've got, I guess that's three saying that they'd like to see that on the agenda for the next meeting, so.
and maybe if you could have a copy, I should have a copy, I'll have to look at the house, but maybe make sure each commissioner and the mayor has a copy of our rules of order for that meeting that we can.
They'll be on the next agenda anyway, since we're providing an update on the agenda order.
Yeah.
So you'll actually have to readopt the entire rules of procedure to change that.
Okay,
I mean, I guess you could just change that one, but essentially you're readopting it.
right.
And that may make us have a lengthy meeting next meeting, I don't know, but we need to discuss.
Okay,
Thank you.
I would add that, it's pretty easy if, say, one member keeps adding an item after item. But I haven't been here to know what those items would have been other than looking at previous agendas.
mm-hmm,
So I would say that, staff will be screening and kind of watching, so if that comes up, we would bring it to your attention as a commissioner.
Please do.
It's kind of hard being new though, because it's, I don't have the track
Yeah.
record and the history knowing what those items are other
Yeah.
than looking at the agenda.
and I think one thing that I guess Ms. Starling can catch you up on this, but if any one of us requires any information, all of us get it. So like if there's a discussion about anything, then it's shared with everybody, so then we're not caught with not having information. And that's always been a policy of one asks for something, everybody gets it. So that, and I think that's a good way to then keeping everybody, in order. Anything else? You're good? Okay, Commissioner Bellflowers?
Just appreciate all the events that went on in the town park. I mean, it was well attended. Folks had a great time. I do have one thing. Jane, is this flyer on the town website? Do you know?
I don't have any idea because I
Okay.
don't do that.
Oh, okay.
That's probably Parks and Recs.
Okay.
It's at the lake.
Okay. I'll check it out and see.
I've seen the map of the swim, so I'm pretty sure it must be on something that they have, because they showed the actual layout of this, where it's going to be on the lake. They've done a good bit of it. I know.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Chief Hodges and Lopez both have worked on that, and I know Lamarco has, because one of the meetings that they had down at the lake, I was down there for something else, and they were meeting. So probably just need to, yeah. Okay.
And I have the links to the organizers too, so it's just, it's just getting the information out. That's the main thing. Thank you, Mayor.
Mm-hmm. Commissioner Edwards?
I only have one thing to say, and I've said it before. I get a lot of calls from especially seniors, and we talk about transparency all the time, but they're not getting anything. I mean, we do things, we say things at our meetings and all, but the people out there don't really know what we're doing and what's going on in the town. They hear about the videos and all. A lot of them can't see the videos. Of course, they don't come to the meetings. They say that this is election year and they know nothing about what the commissioners are doing, what they stand for, and they want more transparency out there that they can read and they can see, like hands-on. And I don't know what to tell them. Do you have any suggestions?
If they have Spectrum TV, we're on there 4 times a week.
A lot of them just don't get on there. They say it's too long. They can't see the commissioners. They don't know which one's talking.
We can't force people to educate themselves. I mean, we put the information out there, but how do we?
I guess I relate to them because I am also a senior, and I like to have hands-on and to see what's going on without sitting in front of a TV late at night or trying to catch it when it comes on. And they can see the commissioners up there. If they don't know their voice, they really don't know which one's talking or what they're saying, and sometimes they don't hear them. And they're really concerned. They really are. That's all.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem?
I guess going back to what Commissioner Edwards said, the Observer will probably cover us for the elections. They usually do, and because it's not a lot of elections going on, I would imagine we would probably get more coverage than we normally would. The other thing about that is if they have some organizations that want to host some forums. I know the millennials had talked about hosting some forums where they can come out and they can meet people and they can talk to them. Those are the only suggestions for free that I have. I would be remiss if I didn't mention the Juneteenth celebration that happened in Hope Mills on Friday. I did see some citizens, committee members, and some staff members there. We had a really good time. And there's also a survey that's being, and I think we don't have the updated one on the website, but there's a survey that we'll ask help for if you know any citizens. We're trying to do a survey to try to get interest into people who would want to go into a trades program hosted by the town of Hope Mills, Fayetteville Tech, and Southview High School. So we do have some interest surveys that are going out, and I appreciate it. That's all I have to say.
We did have a lot of news coverage all day long Saturday, and that was from the mural on Trade Street. Spectrum News ran it in their special interest history section, and it was great coverage. It gave a lot of coverage for Lawrence Smith and his family, and then, of course, the owners of the theater. So that was a plus. And, of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't thank the Arts Council, because with the grants from the Arts Council, we were able to fund the mural, also fund Adam Wall's sculpture, and then it also helped us with really both murals have been funded through the Arts Council. So that the Arts Council have really helped us a lot. But also with the Friends of Hope Mills Library Park, we had a great turnout for that, and we see that park being used. There is more expansion to go to it. Right now, I hope that you've gone by the lake and seen the Rain Tree Park, because today they did put in the new trees. I saw there's 3 good-sized trees down there, and they've that's not complete yet. I do know that with that and with the marquee, we have a lady in the audience that I will personally thank, because most people have forgotten over time, because this is another project that was actually 2010. We got money from First Citizens Bank, and that was when they put the new bank there. They also landscaped the area where the old mill house was. They turned that into municipal parking so that we could share it. That was one of the agreements. They put the clock there, but that wasn't enough to satisfy our appearance committee. They wanted something done on the other side of the street. So Sally Bailey was chairman of the appearance committee at that time, and they gave the town $20,000. But the money could not be spent right away because the dam failed, and there was a lot of construction going on down there. So from 2010 up to really 2018, when the new dam was put in place, the thought was, now's the time. But now is the time. So Sally, just know you'll have a big invitation when we open that up, because we do need to give her credit for the fact that she was very tenacious and persistent. And I don't remember the man, was it Richardson was the man's name? I don't remember the man's name, but I just remember that I wasn't mayor then, I wasn't a commissioner then. I just remember that we were invited over there, and I can remember that he was very thankful that he was able to satisfy one Miss Bailey. So that will be an addition to our community that's going to be well received, and it's very pretty down there already. And I did attend softball. It was hot.
Thank you.
It was, I will tell you that the last game I attended on Saturday evening, the game was supposed to start at 8, and it was supposed to be over. It was supposed to start at 6, but it didn't start till almost 8. And at 10 o'clock, they were up 1-0, and I told my granddaughters, I think they're going to win. We're going to go home. And thank the Lord they won. But the tournament was exciting, and our little girls out there playing softball have done a great job, and I will tell you, the very well-mannered athletes and even the coaches that's been impressive. So, but it's a good tournament, sir, and I appreciate it.
And
Thank
as
you.
of the start of the meeting, all the Hope Mills teams was undefeated.
That's right. All Hope Mills teams were undefeated. So hopefully that'll continue, and we'll be the champs, and it finishes up tomorrow. We hope, unless the weather changes it. All right, anything else for the good of the team? We will have fireworks July 3rd. There is something on Facebook, but just so our town knows, it'll be 9 p.m. And with that, it's not like a normal fireworks event in Hope Mills, in that there's not any type of normally we would have a collection of people, we'd have an event prior to. It'll just be the fireworks somewhere between 9 and 9:15, and we're looking forward to that celebration. But it is July 3rd, and that, again, I think most of our citizens are familiar with it being on the 4th, but it is July 3rd. And then again, our next meeting is not until July 19th. So enjoy the 4th of July. Have a safe vacation, so to speak. Do we have another motion?
Yes, I do. I
Yes,
missed
sir.
it last meeting, but I'm back tonight to pick it up. I make a motion to adjourn.
Have a motion to adjourn, and all in favor, we shall see you July 19th.